in the large social experiments that we all have, we all wondered when the pandemic started, given how long it lasted. I think we asked two questions. One, would there be a baby boom? We did ask that at the start of the year and at the start of the pandemic. And the second one was, is this going to be are we going to see an increase or decrease in the rate of separation and divorce? Are people going to go, well, it's certainly not the right time to make a decision under this much pressure about where we go in the future with a relationship? But some clearly thought otherwise and said, no, there's no time like the present to move along. And it's, in all honesty, like joking about it, it's got a ton of layers of sadness to it because it means there's a lot of more marriages that have split up than average in the last 7-8 months.
Yeah, and it's worth noting there isn't any hard official statistical data on this yet, but lawyers and mediators that are specializing in family law have all basically reported an increase in calls to start initiating separation procedures as well as divorce during this period. And one such family lawyer, Diana Isaac, joins us on the line now. She's a partner with Shulman and Partners, LLP. Diana, good morning.
Good morning.
So you told the CBC that in your own practice, you've seen about a 40%-ish increase in calls from couples that are seeking to end their marriages since the pandemic began. I mean, does that surprise you?
It doesn't. I find that since this was from the inception, that the trend is consistent in terms of people seeking to separate. And I think that when a marriage is on the cusp or verge of a breakdown, parties may find that during a lockdown or a situation where they're confined to the same space for an extended period of time, the situation is exacerbated.
So is this sort of like what we've been saying with other factors in the pandemic, that the pandemic didn't necessarily create these conditions, they've just more or less exposed them?
Yeah, I mean, financial stress also contributes to that, but absolutely, when there's a marriage that's on the verge of dissolution, things like this would definitely be a factor to kind of crystallize that moment of separation.
In terms of what you yourself are personally seeing, and perhaps some of your colleagues, are couples that also have children, do these seem to be more in numbers in terms of who is asking for separation or divorce, or is it pretty much evenly split?
Well, I mean, interestingly, we do see the people that are, beginning their separation during this pandemic, but we also see that there are people who have already separated but are having the parenting issues as it relates to different approaches to the pandemic and whether a parent is following these guidelines. It seems like we get a diversity of cases, but we see all kind of situations as it relates to the parenting issue.
Diana Isaac's our guest on Global News Radio 640 Toronto, partner with Shulman and Partners. Yeah, respecting privacy and attorney-client privilege, but eager to know more about some of the demographics. Are you seeing more younger couples than older couples? There are obviously older couples that may be empty nesters that aren't used to spending this much time together, i.e. quarantining, or are you seeing just the stress? It's tough enough for young couples, young kids, and all that stuff. Give us a sense. Are you seeing more young than old?
I mean, I think we see all walks of life when it comes to the pandemic. I think that when people are dealing with a marriage that isn't going well, it really depends just on those parties. And so you do see gray divorces. In terms of younger people, surprisingly and quite interestingly, we are seeking and seeing people that are looking for marriage contracts and are looking for cohabitation agreements. So they are still planning to get married and moving in with their partner.
That's interesting. Yeah, the idea of moving forward like that. And I suppose there's some element where there must be couples, and maybe there are couples that initiate proceedings and then turn around and say, you know what, like we've realized like there's bigger stuff than, this silly argument or that silly argument, and we're going to make a go of it. And that might be partly the financial pressure, but that may also be we're all able to like see a little bit more of the bigger picture in the last several months maybe than we were before.
Yeah, I mean, we do see reconciliation. We see people that are attempting to go to counseling. We also see that if people are dealing with a breakdown in their marriage, that they may also consider negotiations through mediation and arbitration, which is less emotionally costly for many couples.
Curious if you see tension about custody, and again, knowing nothing of it other than hearing about anecdotes from people who are single parents or remarried parents. The idea of custody during a pandemic is a tricky one because you have to hugely have that trust factor about, doing the right things, following the regulations, and making sure, the kids aren't exposed more often than one partner would like to expose them to potential risk of COVID-19. Tell us a little bit about that. Is that a factor of things you hear about when it comes to settling grievances?
Quite interesting of a question, because when we're dealing with custody, which is major decision making, we are dealing with issues such as education and health. And of course, health is very relevant for a pandemic. And education, as we've seen in our practice, that there was an avalanche of cases that dealt with whether a child should be attending school in person versus online. And so when it came to that, really, a child should be attending school physically unless it creates some sort of unacceptable risk of harm to a parent or anyone in their household. So you saw a lot of those cases during a pandemic because parents have different schools of thought as to whether they want to send the child to school and what social benefit, what academic benefit it has because of their focus, or sometimes it just wasn't pragmatic for certain parents, especially if they're an essential worker, to have their children virtually learning. So we saw a lot of that, and we continue to see that.
Diana Isaac, our guest partner with Shulman and Partners. One more for me, and it's kind of tongue-in-cheek. How many marriages were saved when golf courses reopened and the wife's like, thank God, will you please go for 6 hours? That's probably anecdotally, you can't comment on that.
Unfortunately not.
I don't necessarily subscribe to that stereotype. I know I play golf with a lot of women. So nonetheless, it's like, please, get something to do outside of the house. It's safe. The outdoor air is safe. Please leave me alone for several hours. That'd be awesome if you could do that.
Diana, last question for me on this, but with respect to what the procedure is like right now, is anything different for folks that are seeking out either separation, divorce, maybe just mediation even, with respect to how things would normally work in the before times?
Yeah, so a lot of the court attendances are done virtually, but as many know, the courts are bogged down. They do obviously hear urgent matters without a doubt, but I think it's very important in these situations that, a lot of these couples use common sense, be civil with one another and cooperative. I think it's best to come together and try to come up with a practical solution in an effort to avoid court. And a lot of that, it's important to consult with a lawyer to understand your rights and obligations. Mediation and arbitration is also done virtually. So I think what we see now is that if people have concerns about, in-person attendance, a lot of it is being done virtually, which is seamless, more cost-effective, and quite expeditious. So that's a huge difference we're seeing now.
Diana, thanks so much for this. Really appreciate your time and perspective.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That again, Diana Isaac, partner with Shulman and Partners, LLP.